Hi everyone, it's Sunday. I'm out for a little walk in the forest with my dog, a time for rest, reflection, prayer, thanksgiving, and I had a little illustration that's been kicking around my head and I thought I'd take this opportunity to share it. Like all illustrations, it's not a perfect one, but it does give some context to the environment that we find ourselves in over the last 9-10 months of this pandemic. It's an illustration for the church and for all of those who are connected in the church in lots of different ways. Like I've said already, it's not a perfect illustration, but I thought I'd take this moment to film it in case I forgot all the little points that were going around my head. I didn't have a pen and paper with me. I hope the audio will be okay and the microphone isn't getting hit too hard by the wind. So the illustration is this, that the last 9-10 months we have been experiencing some turbulence, and you are on a flight. All of us are on a flight and we're having to navigate that turbulence in lots of different ways. I want to highlight some key players on the aircraft. The first one is the pilot. I'll call him the pastor, and you have to be mindful that this is no small task to manage this amount of turbulence for a sustained period of time. What a pastor needs to do is he needs to keep his hands on the control. You cannot go into autopilot. The pilot also, it's my dog barking in the background, you also need to be good at communication. Maybe that's a reminder of that point from the dog. The pilot, the pastor, needs to communicate well, and he needs to communicate essentially with these people, with his co-pilot, which I'll come to in a moment, with air traffic control, with his senior air steward, and also with the general public who are on the flight. He has got lots of things to deal with. He needs to look at all of the instruments, but what we must remember, all of us, is that the turbulence is not the pilot's fault, and he has got much to contend with. Can I encourage all of you as pilots, as pastors and leaders? I'm praying for you. I'm cheering you on. I can't imagine how tiresome and exhausting this must be, comforting people who have lost loved ones, tending for the sick, encouraging, trying to speak hope. It has been a tireless and very demanding time. So you've got the pilot, then you've got the co-pilot, and every aircraft should have a co-pilot. That is to say, every church should have a co-pilot. Who is the co-pilot? The co-pilot is the one that the pilot works closely with, who he can rely on, who have got the expertise that if something happens, that they can take over the controls. But not only that, they're an extra pair of eyes on everything that's going on. They're an extra voice on the radio. They're an extra pair of ears listening to what's happening at air traffic control. Every pastor should have a co-pilot in the cockpit with him, whether it is a small church or a big church. That co-pilot needs to be in a position where everyone on the plane knows that there is a co-pilot and knows who that co-pilot is also responsible and qualified for the job. The pilot has got lots of people to communicate with. He's got to work with his co-pilot. He's got to work with air traffic control. Let me illustrate them as being the elders in your church. Of course, it's not a perfect illustration. I'm not suggesting that the elders in your church are divorced from the turbulence, not for 1 second. They're dealing with it in many different ways, not only in a church setting, but family, like many of us, and business, etc., etc. But for the point of illustration, the pilot needs to keep communicating with his air traffic control. The pastor needs to continue to communicate with air traffic control with his elders, and the elders need to communicate with the pastor. This is a very important channel of communication because they will have a different lens on things. They're not in the cockpit. They will be able to see how other planes are perhaps behaving in the turbulence. They will be able to navigate weather maps that the pilot may not be able to see. They have a broader view on what's going on. Additionally, many of those people who are elders will have a depth of experience, perhaps in leading in church in a long time or managing in a business, etc. And they will be able to speak into and support and encourage the pilot. Important: pilot, pastor, don't switch off to your elders. Elders, do not switch off to your pastor. You with me? All right, I hope so. So the illustration goes a little bit further then. There is also in the plane, there is the chief steward and the other stewards who are looking after the people who are on the plane. They are generally the key volunteers or staff inside your church. Again, the pilot needs to communicate clearly with them. They need to remember that they are not the pilot. Okay, so if you are in the worship team or you are in some other role in the church, you are not the pilot. Stop banging the door and shouting at the pilot. Let him do his job. Encourage him. Ask questions by all means. And pilot, pastor, you need to communicate clearly with your key volunteers and staff and reassure them that everything is in control, that God will take care of us. Well, is it going to get hard for you? Yes, but communication is so important. Those people who are the key volunteers and staff, you need to communicate clearly with those who are in the congregation. So the pastor needs to do that, but those key workers need to do that as well in the church. They need to communicate clearly with the congregation, the people like me, and just reassure, hey, we're doing as much as we can. Let them know what our next course of action is. If the pilot is going to drop 500 feet or he's going to go up 1,000 feet, let us know what is going on. Of course, the pilot at times may make mistakes. That's okay, but everyone has to remember he's not intending to make mistakes. He's trying to make this as smooth as possible. Remember, the turbulence is not the pilot's fault. It's no one's fault. We just have to deal with it and get through it. Pilot, hold on to the steering wheel. Keep your eye on the instrument panel and let's work together. For those who are on the plane, those who are the members of the church, the people like me, let's remain calm, let's remain caring, support one another. We don't need anyone who's starting to shout out and panic, who's starting to distress other people on the flight. We don't need anyone who's got conspiracy theories who starts to say, oh, this is a kind of an electronic takeover by Microsoft or something stupid like that. You're in turbulence, let's look after each other. Remember that you're not the pilot. And also, if you've got questions, don't be afraid to ask the questions. And those who are the key workers, do not switch off to the people who are on your plane, and do not switch off to the instructions of the pilot. Lots to tend with there. Last little point I want to make is this, and obviously many of you are watching this know this. I'm an evangelist, and there are others on the plane who can be helpful. I remember being on a flight from America when the pilot called over the tannoy, if you call it that, and he was requesting the assistance of someone from the medical profession, a doctor, because if someone needed help on the flight. The pilot didn't have the experience to deal with that situation, the scenario, but there was someone on the plane who could help with that situation. In the midst of this turbulence, you're going to find people who are sick. In the midst of this turbulence, you're going to find things that are beyond the capacity and leadership and the abilities of the pastor, even air traffic control, and even the stewards. There are people on the plane, evangelists, others who are volunteers, others who have got experience who can help you. Do not switch off to the abilities and talents that are in the plane. And hey, here's my last point. Let's get through this together. It's been a hard shift. We're nearly there, I hope, but let's look after each other and let's be safe. I hope that makes a lot of sense. I suppose the prayer that undergirds it all is the prayer that Jesus prayed for all of us, that we would be one. Bless you. Love you all. Bye-bye.